Hello, hello, and welcome back to our Finding Better podcast. My name is John Suzuki, and I am your host. And this is where we share experiences and wisdom of stuff that we've done where we've been there and done that and finding better in our own life. So you might be able to consider using some of those lessons for your own life. And it's just a really, really safe, cool place with safe, cool people. And if you haven't done so already, share this. It's all about sharing and helping people live better lives. So today I have Rico Racosky with us. Rico, welcome. All
Hey,
right.
John,
So let
honor
me
and privilege.
just let me
Honor
just
and
share with
privilege.
you. Rico wrote this book. It's called Just Two Choices. It is your life. Now, for those of you who have heard some of my podcasts talking about choice and talking about life, I tell people, and I'll just forewarn you that a lot of people have a problem with this statement, but I tell people that your life today is the product of the choices that you've made in the past. And some people say, well, gosh, John, I can't choose my parents. There's a lot of things I couldn't choose. And I go, okay, so then if you think about it, if you think about your life in the future, do you think that your life in the future is going to be the product of the choices and decisions you make from here on out? And of course, everybody says yes. And so if the future holds true, a big part of the past probably holds true too. And so I love Rico because he wrote this book and it's about choices. And it's about choices. And it's not about massive choices, and it is about choosing. And his book is called Just Two Choices. So we're going to so this is a topic that's near and dear to my heart, Rico. Welcome to Finding Better.
Oh, it's an honor and privilege, John. I've been looking so forward to this. Let's
Let's
amp
get
it
into
up.
this.
Let's amp it up.
So
Thank you.
so so just for okay, so this is Finding Better, and a big part of finding better in general is about making choices, about making the right choices. And your whole book is simplifies it and distills it down to just two choices. So help me understand a little bit about your background and how you came to this thesis.
Thesis. Uh, when I told my high school years ago, and I told my high school English teacher I wrote a book, her statement to me was surprise. She went, "You wrote a book?" So
Hey,
you talk about a thesis.
everybody's got a book in them. Everybody. And by the way, audience, you have a book in you. And I will do a future podcast episode on the simplicity of writing a book these days, especially given the technology.
Oh,
And Rico, I mean, you're bringing your experiences to life. You were an Air Force fighter pilot. You made split second decisions, and all of a sudden you're coming up with this book about choices. And yeah, so your high school teacher.
well, it's interesting you say that, and I agree with you 100%. What most people skip over is that it's the day-to-day choices every day that set that momentum for what your
Absolutely.
future is. It's not
Hmm.
the big. They all lead to the big choices. They all lead to the brick house being complete, but it's those individual bricks on a day-to-day basis, consistently placed in the right place, cemented properly. Everything fitting together properly that ends up making a beautiful home, right?
That is
Making a
such
beautiful
a good
fireplace,
analogy.
like your
Yeah.
fireplace behind you. It's that step by step. We put this one really, really long rock in here, and then we put the short one there. And people, that I think is the big thing that people kind of skip over. Now, to compress the story about Just Two Choices, probably my real first Just Two Choices moment was was in high school, and I was talking to my guidance counselor about how I wanted to go fly, fighters for the Air Force and just for the Air Force. And I'm from a small coal mining and steel town. Both sides of my family are coal miners, and so being above ground is kind of different than being below ground. And so,
Being way above ground. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And so my grandfather, who immigrated from Croatia, he'd say, "Yeah, flying for the birds. Flying's for the birds." That's all he'd tell
Flying
me.
for the birds. Yeah.
He go, "You crazy man, flying foot of the borders." And I'd say, "Grandpa, you're crazy. You'd never catch me in a coal mine." And he'd start laughing. He go, "It's easy work. It's easy work, sonny."
Oh my gosh.
And so I have this meeting with my guidance counselor. My grades were okay, you know. And as I'm walking out, she says to me, and I'll never forget it because I was just about out. You can probably picture your high school too, where the guidance office was. I'm just about out the door, and that door across was, of course, across the hall from the office where the principal was. So I'm on my way out the door, and she says, "Mr. Racosky," and I turn around to my left. I remember it. I turn around and I said, "Yes, ma'am." And she goes, "You're never going to get into flight school for the Air Force. You need to go to a junior college." And I wasn't crushed. I want everybody to know, please hear me. I was not angry. I was not crushed. I just respectfully said, probably said, "Yes, ma'am," or something like that. And I turned around, and as I was walking out the door, I said, "That doesn't sound right. I'm going to apply anyway." My first just two choices moment. I didn't believe her. I believe me, which is, at 17, believe in yourself and even as an adult, believing in yourself is a big step. And so that was my first, like, just two choices moment. Like, no, I'm going to believe in me. I'm going to go apply to flight school anyway, in spite of what she says for me going to junior college. And so
Good for you.
that was kind of the introduction to it, of the idea.
I'll tell you, God bless guidance counselors. I mean, really, God bless them. But,
Yeah,
it's like, dudes, it seems like they think that their job is to place reality into our heads or something,
that's
right?
that. Yeah,
And yeah, but I mean, done right, they can either be empowering or they
yeah.
can be massive dream killers,
But isn't
and
But isn't that a lot of humanity? A lot of humanity just goes like, "What do you want to do that for?" I mean, even when as an entrepreneur,
that's
it's like,
true. That's
what do you want
true.
to do that for? And I think entrepreneurial stuff, like what you're doing with your podcast, for example, and the book you're writing, and for everybody who's listening who has that entrepreneurial spirit, they talk about it all the time. It's like there's gonna be those dream killers that are out there, just like, "What do you want to do that for?" And they don't have any skin in the game. They don't have
Yeah,
a
no, that's right. That's right. It's just words to them, and
yeah,
yet, and yet, those words can be. I mean, they can just pierce right through your heart. And so it's really cool that you took those words and said, yeah, that I appreciate your. I mean, I would imagine that somewhere in there the processing went something like this. Yeah, well, thank you for your opinion. You don't know Jack, and I'm going to go do it anyway. And good for you. That's awesome.
well, you're giving me far more credit for being far more mature at age 17 than I was. It was more of like, that don't sound right. That
Yeah,
doesn't.
and that's right. And the other thing is that although you say that was your first just two choices moment, your whole life up until that moment was
Well,
about processing choices, right?
yeah,
But I would guess my guess is, and you can tell me if my guess is right or wrong, that was your first just two choices that you were aware of.
right. And it only came in reflection because what happened was years later, after I was out of flight school for the Air
Uh-huh.
Force, flying around the world, I flew transports first, and then I flew fighters later, F-16s later. So as I'm flying around the world, I'm going like, dang, I remember what that guidance counselor said, and
Yeah, no kidding.
here I am living this because I really did. I mean, I grew up with a lot of self doubts, and I had a lot of personal things I just had to overcome in terms of, and I think that's the beauty. And I think I'd like to hear your thought on it too, because that's the beauty of having a big dream, because you go beyond. If it's a smaller dream, the self doubts have more impact. But if you set the bar high unknowingly, that I set the bar really high for myself. It was one of those things where I went, I just got to keep going. And so what I ended up doing was coming up with this idea called a formula called dreams plus action equals reality. And that's where I wrote my first book. Is I said, you know what? If I'm hearing this, you know, 6, 7 years after college, I'm thinking about, I'm flying in the Air Force and I'm going like,
Yeah.
what are these kids now, 7, 8, 10 years behind me getting from guidance counselors? So that
Yeah.
idea, dreams plus action equals reality, gave me a chance to go talk to schools, which led to, I kept saying in every moment, there are just two choices of action in dreams plus action equals reality. There are just two choices. It's either going to take you closer to or further away. And then finally, after thousands of times of saying closer to or further away, just two choices, I went, hey, there's an idea for another book. And so that's
So
how just
so so t talk about the closer to or farther away. Talk about what just two choices how to apply what you're teaching.
it my background is in art and my background's in aviation, both very visual, instant understanding kind of backgrounds. I didn't do a whole lot. I mean, I skipped a lot of art because I went into flying. I figured I could go do art some other time, when because I got a last minute phone call.
Sure.
My mom got a phone call and said, "Hey, you got a slot." And I said, "I'm jumping on that."
Wait, you
So
got a last minute phone call from the Air Force?
yeah, that said, we found a slot. You want to go? And so in a way, the guy was right. I didn't get in right away. It was on my third try that I actually got in, and I got that phone call, and I go, man, I can do art some other time.
And that
And
and that of itself is another point of inspiration. Don't give up, right?
well,
I mean, the first
because
no, the first no is just a standard letter,
well,
and just keep going.
and from marketing, it takes they say an average of eight contacts with somebody before you get them to interact with you. So just get. I agree with that philosophy. There's this of how do they say it? It's go for the no. I mean,
Go
just
for the
look at
no.
no. It's just another way of growing and saying, okay, I've got to ask the question a different way.
Yeah.
And so so that's kind of how it evolved, writing books for kids, working with elementary schools in between flying. But the other thing I want to put into mind is that in aviation, when you look up at the cockpit, when you're looking up in the cockpit and something happens, there's an instant light that flashes. It's a binary light, right? It's a just two choices moment. It comes up blue, that means the system turned on. Let's just say engine any ice. The light turns on, it goes blue. You go, oh, the engine any ice is working. If the light doesn't come on after you flip the switch, you go, man, I got to stay away from clouds. The engine any ice isn't working. Just two choices. And so 30 plus years of living in a just two choices visual cockpit of flashing light. Is it a good light? Just two choices, or does a bad light?
Mm-hmm.
And then that whole sequence that comes down from there kind of led to the visual description of what you're asking before. And every moment is a
Okay,
just two choices.
so for those of you who are not on our YouTube channel, Rico is holding up a graphic and it says just two choices. And from just two choices is an arrow that's going diagonally up and an arrow that's going diagonally down. And it just says just two choices, one and two, up or down. Okay.
And so thank you. And so you always want to make it's not so much about making the right choice all the time. It's about making new, like you talked about earlier. It's about making new and better incremental choices. You see, it's about those smaller ones that build up into the really, really big one.
Absolutely.
And for those who are listening, if you hold your hand, I'm right-handed, so if you hold your right hand up in a peace sign, and then you turn it 90 degrees, your index finger becomes choice number one, always pointing upward toward the sky, and then your middle finger is pointing down. And now that's a number two, just two choices. So every moment's a just two choices moment. Do I take something that takes me further away, going down, like the way the middle finger would go if you're holding your hand parallel, or horizontal? And then choice number one is the direction of the new and better choice. And I like new and better because there's always encouragement in people. It keeps me away. It keeps me away from going and beating up on myself like, oh, what a bonehead. I shouldn't, and you go, the only reality that exists is now. We can only make a choice now.
Right.
We can't make a choice 10 minutes from now. And that's
10 minutes ago.
Yeah. And that's the beauty of what you were talking about. You don't think your life's made of choices? Well, try to make a choice 10 minutes from now.
I love it.
However, you will be, you'll be closer to whatever you were going to, the grocery store, or,
So I love that analogy of the first choice being pointed upward and the second I think you said upward and better.
New and better.
New and better. New and
upward,
better.
Well, let's add that. I like that, John. Upward, new and better.
Upward and better, and downward and worse. I mean that's about as binary as you're gonna get it, right? And I love that, and I love the idea because if you know that, and I've tried it and it works, right? When I have a decision to make, I'll go. Is this okay? What decision is going to take me to better? I mean, we're about finding better, right? So how perfect can that be? And but I have down, up and better, or down and worse, if you will,
or further away from. It's going to
or
take you
further
further.
away from. Yeah, further away from what you're trying to accomplish, right? And what a really really simple metaphor to,
No,
because a lot of times it's hard, so, and of course you get to the point where you go, God, I know what the right thing to do is. I know it's up and better, but gosh, I don't want to have to go through what I have to go through to make
I,
that decision.
I wish I had it right now. I'm looking around. There's nothing within reach for me. So I'm gonna use this little. I'm gonna use this. I'll use this thing to represent a book. Okay.
Okay.
Of course, you see all these books are on the shelf behind me, right?
Yeah.
On the shelf behind me.
Right.
But the point is, what I two things. The first point is that I'm the kind of guy who I'm a slow reader, and how do I memorize if this is 400, 200 pages? How do I memorize what's in this book so I can apply it on a regular
Hmm.
basis? Now, if I know that everything is just two choices in my head, that summarizes all the content that's in these books on both sides of me. It's just two choices. I either choose to apply what's back here or I don't. And so it's something I can carry around in my head in every moment, no matter where I'm at. I go, oh, yeah, just two choices. And if I'm, and so is this going to take me closer to one or further away from what I want? No matter what I'm doing in life. I mean, it can even respond to, I used to have, have road drama. Somebody cut in front of me, and I never did anything with hands, but they're inside the car. I get, I'm Italian. I get animated. I get animated. And I got tired of getting animated. This guy cut me off one day, and I was getting animated. And I start laughing. And I go, Rico, you know how this stuff works. Just two choices. That guy's not making you mad. You're the one who's making yourself angry. And do you like that feeling? Because it ruins your day. It can throw your whole day off.
Yeah, no,
You
it's true.
the next thing you know, you're talking to friends. Oh, this guy cut me off, and then it's lunchtime, and you spent part of your morning complaining about and being upset about something that you or that I have control over. I have control over how I feel. Well, I didn't think I did, but just two choices reminds me I have control over how I feel, and I want to feel good. I don't
Yeah.
want to feel I don't want to feel worse. I want to feel better. And so I
Yeah.
started making a better choice. I actually hung this up in these kind of things up in my car so that I'd be driving along, something happened. I go like, dude, just two choices, dude. Remember, don't go there. And so now I just kind of go, and then I start to laugh. And it's just like, I've cut people off before by accident. I've never tried to cut anybody off. It's not my nature, but I've done it. I
I
didn't use
love
my
it.
correctly, and so give this guy the benefit of the doubt, and not only that, but make myself happy in an upward
Yeah.
direction instead of letting myself upset for even. It's not worth being upset for.
Yeah,
For
and you think about it, and you go, okay, so what if the guy was purposely a jerk? And what if he did it on purpose to be a
Yeah,
jerk? Why are you going to let him ruin your day, right? I mean,
yeah,
for me, what in that particular situation, I get a little bit fearful because I'm like, did I cut that guy off? Is that why he's what that is that why that happened? Just quick story. I do,
yeah.
and I actually had a podcast episode called "Finding Better Road Rage," and all it was if somebody cuts you off, or if you cut somebody off, or somebody you look in your rearview mirror and you got somebody riding your bumper 6 inches off your bumper, and you might have cut them off on purpose, or you might have cut them off by accident, or they may just be being a jerk. Whatever the case is, here's what I do. I look in the rearview mirror and I raise my right hand, I open my fingers and I wave.
Yeah,
That's
I
all I
do.
do. It's not the middle finger salute. It's
Yeah,
not the Italian what's the matter with you gesture, right? It is simply opening my hand and waving. And
yeah,
I will
yeah.
tell you, Rico, my experience has been 100% of the time, people back off. They just back off because you're saying, I see you, number one. And number two, you're saying you're acknowledging them, right?
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
even when I have to purposely cut people off because I'm changing lanes and I have to get off the freeway or whatever, I'll just wave and everything is amazingly good. But that's the choice that I make, right? I mean, the just two choices. I can be really upset. I can be screaming and going, "What's the matter with you?" And I still do. I mean, there's still times that I do that. But I'm choosing to try to diffuse that situation as best I can. So
And,
yeah,
and
I love the idea. You simplify it exactly. It's
your head, it's
again
in your
that
head.
graphic.
It's and that's the other thing. Visuals for those of you who aren't on who are listening and you turn your head sideways, you now have a visual. You have a kinesthetic method to remind you that's not going to detach from your body overall. It's
Yeah.
always going to be with you, and you can always remind yourself by just turning your hands out and going just two choices. Or
Yeah.
and people once you see the visual, visuals are 60,000 times faster than reading all these pages 60,000 times faster than words. A visual says, "Oh, I get it." And
Yeah.
so it's a common part, and it's a combination from those 30 years of flying. If you look up and you go, another just two choices moment. Boy,
Yeah.
that doesn't look
Yeah.
good.
What
Or
was it
who flies?
like being a fighter pilot?
I,
Did you love it? Did you
I hope
love
the
it?
audience. I never dreamed it would be as much fun as it is.
I can't
It,
even imagine. I can't imagine the stress. But I also can't imagine, one of my bucket list items is to fly in a fighter jet. And because you can
you're
hire,
right.
you know I'm not I'm that I'm sure they're not going to put me up in an F-35 or anything like that, but strap me with a rocket engine on the back of any airplane and I'll be happy. um but yeah, I just can't imagine. And by the way, thank you for your service. Thank you for your service in protecting this country. F-35s, they're the real deal. They are the real deal.
Yeah, it's we have a saying. It's the most fun you can have with your clothes on. For and
Nice.
and and when somebody asks, especially, I mean, I'm sure the F-35 guys feel the same way. But when somebody says to you, because I went and flew for Southwest Airlines, so everybody's a pilot you run into. So the conversation's going to be, "What'd you fly?" I mean,
Yeah,
it
yeah,
doesn't start with "What'd you fly." It somewhere gets woven into "What'd you fly."
yeah.
And when somebody says "What'd you fly," I'd say for the most part with the F-16 guys, they ask the question, and there's this big smile like this. They call it the F-16 smile, you know. And
Yeah,
then you said, so I just feel really blessed. I was at the right place at the right time. I think the biggest thing for flying any of these kinds of things is a lot of it has to do with being at the right place at the right time, and they have a slot that's available for you to get
yeah.
into. I said I got turned down initially. They didn't have a slot, and then later on they ended up having a slot. I mean, and
And again, you kept going. You
yeah.
kept going. You said, yeah, they don't have a slot now, but maybe they'll have a slot in the future. And
Well, as Wayne Gretzky likes to say, you miss 100% of the shots you never take.
yeah,
And so
no, that's right.
the probability of being a fighter pilot and not putting your application in is zero. It's
Yeah,
not like they're looking for you. And
that's
so
right.
you got to keep putting it in and putting it in and putting it in and putting it in. And maybe it does, maybe it wouldn't happen. I know that was a possibility, but it definitely is not going to happen if I don't let them know that I'm interested in doing something like that.
Exactly. And keep choosing forward. Keep choosing upward. Keep
I like
choosing,
that.
because the idea of what are the choices? The choices are up or down, better or worse,
Yeah.
future or not. And so I love how you simplified it. And you give people that opportunity to make decisions and how to make decisions in a
Well,
way.
and again, I learned it from working with elementary school kids. I used to say to them, under that dreams plus action equals reality formula, I say, look, kids, every action you take is going to take you either closer to what you want or further away from what you want in a linear fashion. I point left or right. And then I say, there are just two choices. And then after, who knows, Lord knows how many times I said that. I remember going one day, oh, there's a book here.
Yeah, no doubt.
Probably for adults that would be more meaningful for adults to understand about choice. But it's almost too simple sometimes. It's interesting for those listening. Sometimes people say, well, just two choices, not you as listeners, but there might be some people who are thinking this, just two choices is just too simple.
Yeah,
It's the binary, it's the exact binary of what how we are having this communication with Zoom. It's zeros and ones manipulated into blocks of information that are yes or no, going gazillions of you probably know the technology behind this. I don't. It's but it's all binary. Every bit of it's just two choices
absolutely.
every moment,
Yeah,
except they
yeah.
found a way to compress it to create the reality that we're living right now.
And again, distilling it down to something simple as the choice is yes or no. It's
Yeah.
up or down. It's good or bad. It's better or worse, right? And right. I mean, you think about that. You think about that in those terms, and all of a sudden it goes, okay. So then I would imagine, like with me, I've created something of that framework, right? That
Yeah.
says where my decisions go can be up or down, better or worse, fast forward or backward, right?
Right.
That kind of thing. And just keep going forward, folks. Okay.
Yeah.
Keep that upward trajectory of better,
Yeah.
better, better
Yeah.
or worse. And I will always advocate, folks, take the better path.
Yeah.
We're about finding better. So this has really been wonderful, Rico.
It's an honor, John, and folks, just like you were talking about in the beginning, John, it's the small stuff that adds up at the end of the day or at the end of the hour that makes for these bigger choices. A lot of us. I mean, it's human nature to want to win the lottery and that one big choice, or to win
Yeah,
the lottery in
yeah,
life, that one big choice. But it's the ones that really make the most difference that bring about the big choices are the millions of small choices, consistent, like you were talking about, this up and new and better, upward, this taking you closer to what you want instead of further away from what you want. And it's a life is a choice by choice moment. And I
it
think that's what
is.
I think the future is it's taking action in my book. Take massive action, that's a choice. You can either take massive action or take less than massive action. So I think the new consciousness, the new frontier of thought is people recognizing this is a choice. And
Yeah.
I got just two choices right now.
And I love the analogy of the fireplace right behind me. Folks, for those of you who are not watching, I've got a fireplace that's made out of a bunch of bricks, a bunch of stones that are layered on top of each other horizontally. And your metaphor that said, you make decisions on brick by brick by brick by brick, and over time and over many of these decisions on which bricks to use, how to position the bricks or the stones, how to go through this, you end up with a fireplace, right? And that fireplace is a result of the decisions that you made for every single brick that built it. I love that analogy. I really do, because it's visual, it's simple, it's powerful, and it all ends up with the notion that what you end up with is the sum of all the decisions that you made to get to that point. I love that.
And let me add to that, John. And for those who can't see it, it's a beautiful fireplace. I mean,
Well, thank you. I like it. Thank you.
yeah, it really is. And you look on the sides, and there's some smaller pieces of stone. There's some bigger ones. There's stuff that's taller, and there's long, thin ones. It's all of those things. But it wouldn't be that beauty if it didn't have all of those choices, so to
That's
speak,
right. That's right. That's
that,
right.
that made it what it is. It's a beautiful
Yeah.
fireplace.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's wonderful. Oh my gosh, thank you. Thank you, Rico. This is folks, it's your choice. Finding better is your choice. It's your choice. And Rico, thank you so much. Again, the name of the book is Just Two Choices. It
Thank you.
is your life. I love this. It's wonderful. And so pick it up, and I love how you simplified it, Rico.
John, it's an honor and privilege to chat with you about it, and I love your idea of finding better, because that's a just two choices thing too.
It
You're
is.
finding better. You're not finding worse.
Yeah,
and
actually, that's the choice, right? You can find better, you can find worse. I choose to find better, and I encourage everybody to do that same thing.
and that's your book.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. That's it. So, Rico, thank you
Thanks,
so
man.
much for joining us. This has been wonderful. You've been uplifting, you've been inspiring, you've simplified life, and you've simplified the process of making choices. And I love you. Um,
Uh, it goes both ways, John, because the conversation's two-way. I mean, we're feeding off each other smiles and energies. So
That's
thank
it.
you.
That's it. That's it. Life's too short. Life is too short. So
It is.
listen, folks, pick it up. Just Two Choices by Rico Racosky. I love you. God bless you. And we'll see you next time. Bye.
Cheers.